to this lesson in Awakening. This lesson in Awakening is about the human experience is governed by frequency. That means that your human experience is governed by your frequency. Now, obviously, to talk about this, I am going to have to use Dr. David Hawkins' amazing map of consciousness. If you haven't already seen his map of consciousness and you're interested in learning more about it, I'll put a link in the description and the video in the end screen to a video that I have already done on a general overview of the map of consciousness, because this one is a little bit more specific. So I'm going to go straight in and share the screen. Excellent. I hope that's clear. So this is Dr. David Hawkins' famous map of consciousness from his book, Power versus Force. Yes, the colors are relevant, relating to the chakras. I'm not going to cover all of this now, as I've just said, because I have already done a video on that. But I really want to focus today on understanding that the human experience is governed by frequency. Everything that you are attracting in life, everything that you are creating, however you view it, that you're manifesting, is a vibrational match to your frequency. And we don't kind of just have one frequency. We have an overriding frequency, like a default setting. Obviously, you know, one day you could have a beautiful, loving day with loving people, and then the next day you could have some bad news and go into grief or anger. So yes, we do experience different frequencies within this chart, but there is an overriding default setting, which kind of governs the experiences that we're going to have, the kind of people we're going to meet, the kind of jobs we're going to get offered, the kind of places that we want to live in. You know, everything is energy, right? Everything is energy and everything is vibrating at a certain frequency, and like attracts like. So, but it's understanding that the outside is created from the inside. That is the second of the 7 Hermetic principles, the principle of correspondence, as within, so without. So the outside, your perceived outside, is a reflection of the frequencies within you. And when a frequency within you wants to come up and be acknowledged, so you could be living in a state of love, higher up in the chart, but if you have a trapped emotion, let's say, of fear or anger, something like that, that wants attention, it wants to be processed, it wants to be let out, allowed, acknowledged is the right word, I guess, then it will create a vibrational match. And you will experience something in your reality that will trigger that trapped emotion of fear or anger. So you might meet an angry person, or you might have an experience whereby you were afraid, but it's all born out of that trapped emotion that was within the cells of your body. Even though you're not living in a state of permanent fear, you could be living in a state of love. But there are all these different frequencies within us. But as I said before, there is an overriding one. So understanding that what you're creating in your reality is dependent on your frequency. I mean, that takes a level of understanding. So I'm going to start at the bottom of this chart, although there isn't really a top and bottom. It's all just information, if that makes sense. There is no right and wrong and good and bad or anything like that. For me, this is about understanding. It's not about judgment or putting people in boxes. It's about understanding the soul's path of evolution. And I think it's really interesting, and I think it's really important to understand the soul's path of evolution, because not only does it help us on our own path, but I find it very useful because it helps relate to other people, and it helps help other people. So most people, especially if you're watching this video, you are already in the the opened up willingness, acceptance, moving towards love, if not already there. And I would imagine that you have a desire to help others in one way or another. And if you are vibrating at the love frequency on this chart, explaining to somebody who is depressed, who is at, let's say, apathy. If you look at the bottom of the chart, you'll see apathy vibrating at 50 with despair and hopeless and condemning. I mean, I look at the God view and the life view in the other video that I mentioned before. So if you want to know about all the different columns, then check that one out. But if you're talking to somebody who's depressed, there's no point in talking to them about the level of love that you're living in, and the things that you do and the things that you experience, because obviously your experiences are born out of your frequency, and their experiences are born out of their frequency. So telling other people your opinion, your thoughts, these are also energy and vibrate at a certain frequency. So they're not going to listen. You can nag somebody who's depressed, to get out of bed and go and walk in nature and stuff. But that's not really going to help them, because they're not going to receive it if it's coming from, a higher frequency. So, but having said that about walking in nature, of course, that is one of the things that somebody that is really depressed would benefit from, but they're not going to understand that, and they're going to find it a real effort to go out into nature. So, there is a little bit of helping people, maybe dragging them out, I don't know, that kind of thing. But if we have a look at apathy, well, if you have a look at the real bottom of this chart, you've got shame and guilt, and these are the people who probably have suffered from self-loathing, and they have this attitude of dog eat dog, or survival of the fittest, or I would say attack is the best form of defense. So they will probably come across as quite hostile, and trying to help them in some ways, they'll probably reject a lot of people that are trying to help them, because if you're going in with this loving, high frequency energy, ideas, activities, they're not going to resonate with it. So they're going to automatically push it away. So you will feel like that they are hostile, they're rude, they're not helping themselves and all of this, but it's actually a frequency thing. One of the main thing that we can offer people that are anywhere on this chart, of course, is love. Because although we can only acknowledge love at the level that we love ourselves, and the people at the bottom of this chart don't love themselves very much, but there's still our unconditional love will trump whatever they're feeling, if that makes sense. Unconditional love is our trump card. That's what I want to say. So having unconditional love, and it has to be unconditional, because they're going to be rejecting you. They're going to be rude, probably. It's going to be difficult. So you have to see through all of that and understand why they're behaving like that. And it's because of their own guilt and their own shame and their own feelings of unworthiness. So let's go on to apathy, because apathy is where people are depressed. Just one moment. Apologies there, I had to let the dog out. Okay, I'm back here now, and we were talking about apathy and people that were depressed. So this is the root chakra, where people are very focused on themselves. They lack compassion, and it's all about existing and feeling safe. And The next section is the sacral chakra, the orange band, and that is our creative center. Of course, the sacral chakra is relates to our reproductive organs, so it's very much creating energy. So if you want to help somebody who's depressed, you kind of need to drag them out into nature. They won't understand why, but it will do them the world of good, of course. And somehow encourage them to be creative. Now, then they're not going to be able to concentrate for long on being creative. So even if it's just doodling, I mean, if they're an artist, they need to, paint, obviously. If they're a musician, they need to play their instrument. If they're a tarot card reader, they need to read cards. Obviously, they need to do whatever it is that their soul has come here to do. But they probably don't know what that is, even if you do, right? But even if they're just doodling or doing a puzzle or something like that, that would really help them shift into that next level of consciousness, that next band of frequency, the next bandwidth, so to speak. You notice that on the next bandwidth, we have desire and craving. So if you can just get out of them, a depressed person, what their desire is, because they're not even in the frequency of desire. They're going to apathetic. It means that they completely don't care about anything. So if you can just talk about desires and try and get out of them, just the basic, any desire that they might have, and then talk about it and then focus on that desire, because just focusing on the energy of a desire is going to help them shift into the next band. Do you see what I mean? I mean, if you look at these levels of frequency, you can see that fear and anxiety is above apathy. So when somebody's really depressed, they don't have fear and anxiety because they are so depressed. So even if you introduce something that makes them afraid and anxious, now that sounds really bizarre, doesn't it? Why would we want someone to be fearful and anxious? But at least if somebody is fearful and anxious, it means that they're in a creative bandwidth. It means that they're in this bandwidth whereby even if they're finding the world frightening, it's better than finding the world evil or hopeless. Do you see what I mean? So this is how these words really help, I think, because by focusing on these words and the energies that they relate to, help depressed people focus on something above where they're at. Because they're not going to resonate with whatever you're doing in the green band or the blue band or what have you. So just trying to help them step by step whilst unconditionally loving them. That's what's going to really help, of course. Now, when you're in, when you come across people that are in the sacral chakra, the orange band, so they could be very fearful and full of anxiety. How can we help these people? Well, like I've just said, they need to be creative. So whatever they are good at, whatever they enjoy doing, they need to do more of it. So that because that in itself will raise their frequency. And of course, they can also focus on their desires. Now, most people in this bandwidth, they feel like the injustices that they experience are out of their control. They don't understand that they have power over their own reality, because that comes in the yellow band, right? Personal power, solar plexus, confidence, assertiveness, right? So if you want to help somebody here, it would be by encouraging them, by getting them to talk about their desires, getting them to talk about what they love doing, what they're good at, their creativity, and encourage them to take a step towards that, to encourage them to bring that into their world a little bit more in some way or another. And they're going to be afraid to do that, and they're going to not believe that they can achieve anything. they're going to believe that they're not going to believe that they have power and control over their own human experience. So explaining that to them might not help, but just getting them to talk about their dreams and helping them see that little bits and pieces, you can bring that in. You know, it's like if you take a step towards what your soul wants you to do, it's just taking that one step, because what's happening is you're in a bandwidth. And if you want to shift to another bandwidth, it's like turning the dial on a radio. You do have to literally turn that dial. You do have to literally make an effort. You know, you can't just sit there and go, okay, I want to listen to the next station now. No, you have to go and make that effort. And so that's why I'm saying the walking in nature and the doing something, however little, creative, will in itself shift the frequency to bring in more experiences at the next level. So then in the orange level, at this level, the sacral chakra level, the level of fear, by taking that step towards what the soul wants you to do, just whatever it is you enjoy, whatever it is you're good at, and just bringing it into, encouraging them to bring it into their life a little bit more. Because when they do that, they will expand, you know, and that expansion and that step towards their desire, you know, because they'll have a craving. You notice how there's this craving as well. And this releasing fear. Yes, helping them release fear. It's a big one, I know. Yeah. Will get them to bring in a higher frequency, and they will be able to then take their creative drive to another level. See, creativity, you know, cures everything. Now, rather than fearing the world around them, these are your God-fearing people, by the way, the God-fearing folk. They fear, I don't know, the system. They fear, they don't want to break any rules. They're really good at following rules because they're afraid as to what will happen if they broke a rule. But just helping them through their creativity and through loving themselves and through doing what brings them joy, which will go against their nature because they don't believe that they deserve joy or something. But, you know, encouraging them to do that. And I know this sounds a bit weird as well, because look, if you look in the yellow band, we've got anger and hate, you know, and the last thing we want to do, we think, is to encourage somebody to hate somebody. That seems very counterintuitive. But a little bit of anger here isn't a bad thing, because notice that the apathetic person, you know, can't even be bothered to be angry with the outside world. At least here at the level of anger, although it's still a state of contraction, it's quite high on the chart considering, you know, I mean, it's still in, as I said, in the bottom half, but the thing about anger is that people want change. They want to make a difference, but they don't understand that the difference starts within them. So they're angry with what's outside of them, even though what's outside of them is a vibrational match to what's inside of them, even though they are the creators and contributors to what's outside of them. They may not understand that. So they're angry with what they've created. But it's a good step. It's a stepping stone. This is the evolution of the soul. It's all part of the evolution. If you look back at your life, you will identify places where you were angry. And rightly so, it's all good, you know, it's okay. I mean, we don't want to get caught up in it, and we want to go on to the courage, obviously. But being angry with the injustices in your experience is not a bad thing. It's a good stepping stone, because in this yellow bandwidth, the solar plexus, this is where your personal power comes in. And this is where people are usually quite assertive. I mean, here we've got the words aggression, we've got pride. You know, people are empowered. We've got the word empowerment. This is where people start realizing that they can maybe do an extra job and make some more money, that they can talk to people in a different way and get a better outcome. You know, these are people that start realizing that their actions are improving their world. They might not understand the bigger picture. They might not be relating to their spiritual nature. They might be thinking that these great ideas that are coming to them are, you know, from the individuated, you know, person as opposed to the all that is. But it's a powerful place to be, because it pushes people to be more of a success, even though I would say, generally speaking, the kind of success people are looking for in this bandwidth is what I call human desires, as opposed to soul's desires. So those human desires and fulfilling your human potential, which we were taught about at school, your human potential being to get lots of qualifications and to work hard and to have a nice car and a big house and to be able to afford materialistic things. You know, what is a success? Because the sign of somebody that gets to the green bandwidth is usually somebody that's kind of achieved a lot of that, and then sits back going, okay, now what? I've got the house, the car, the title, you know, the experience, you know, what have you, the relationship, but something's missing. And this is why I think there's often midlife crisis, because the midlife crisis comes in because you've done everything that you were taught by society to do, and you've done everything, like your soul, your human, the programming that the human has had, you've achieved a lot of that. But the point is now to access the frequencies of the green band, you need to listen to the soul. And we've got things like trust here, you know, optimism, and a willingness, transcendence. You know, this is where really people start being inspired, and they need to start following their heart, because this is where we start going into an expanded state of awareness, and you start realizing that that there are some things that bring you joy, and that you're going to do them more, even if they don't make you money, even if your society has frowned upon it, or even if your family don't want you to, you know, even if it means moving countries, moving house, leaving a relationship, leaving a job. You know, you get to this stage where it's just like, no, my soul is screaming that I don't want to be in this dead-end job, or I don't want to be in this relationship, I don't want to be in this country, or whatever it might be for you. And so this is where people, see, you've got the courage. I think that's why you've got the courage there. You've got the empowerment, you've got the affirmation, you know, like, no, I know what I need to do. Things become feasible. And you have a trust. Yeah, you start trusting in yourself, and you have an optimism because you don't really know what's going on. You have a willingness because you really don't know what's ahead. You're really moving into the unknown, and you're exploring it. But the thing about this level is, of course, you've transcended fear. So you're not going to be afraid to leave your day job or to follow your heart. So, you know, if you want to encourage somebody to go from the solar plexus yellow bandwidth into the green heart chakra loving bandwidth, I would say you want to help them open up to the concept that they are a multidimensional being. And if you want help with that, I have a video. The number one lesson in awakening is understanding that you are a multidimensional energy being. So just tapping into the importance of following your heart. In the end, people do it anyway because it brings them joy and it brings them peace. And they like that. And because taking yourself to a 9-to-5 job that you don't enjoy literally does start making you sick. There's no two ways about it. If you ignore what your soul wants you to do, and your soul is talking to you through your intuition, through your thoughts, through your desires, through your joy, through your excitement, And of course, also through the opposite of all of those, if you are going to a job that your soul doesn't want you to do, it's going to make you feel really, unpleasant about it. So it will start making you sick, and you'll start realizing that. If you want to help somebody go from this band into a state of love, not just loving things. So in the green band, you start loving things. You start loving all the flowers, all the animals, life. You understand the power and importance and frequency of love. You start loving yourself. That's the most important thing, of course. But when you get into the blue band, this love here at 500, this is actually when you're living in a state of love, not just a feeling of love. And the main way that you can help somebody move into this bandwidth, as you can see, would be to help them accept. So you've got acceptance there, forgiveness. Forgiveness is right there at 350. So we can see that helping others with forgiveness, ho'oponopono. I have a video on the path to forgiveness. I have a video on the power of willingness. I have a lot of videos on the different spiritual lessons that come out of this chart. So take a look at the whole series of Lessons in Awakening if it resonates. So yeah, helping people with their acceptance and forgiveness, understanding the power of forgiveness, understanding that forgiveness really has nothing to do with the person that you're forgiving. It has everything to do with liberating you from the resentment of not forgiving. So yeah, really powerful stuff there. And that takes you up into the love frequency. Now, as you go up this chart, the experiences that you have are going to be vibrational matches to you. So when you're at 350, for example, you will have opportunities to forgive people, and you will experience other people forgiving you, because it's all a frequency around an energy. Forgiveness is an energy vibrating at that frequency. So it will be around you when you're vibrating at that frequency. You will have opportunities to accept things that you hadn't accepted before. Okay. Let's take anger, at 150, even hate or aggression. This frequency that you're experiencing at 150 will get reflected back to you. It will create and manifest in the physical realm at that frequency. So you will be meeting angry people. You will be meeting people that are angry with you. You will be meeting people that trigger that anger from within you. You may even see situations that you hate. And you might feel aggression towards people or situations, or current affairs, or things like that. Because you are creating at the frequency that you are, which is okay, right? There's no judgment there. This is about understanding how we create this stuff and understanding how we can lift ourselves out of it. I think with anger, understanding that you have created the situation. And of course, you're going to say, well, look, there's this massive thing going on and I'm just one person. And how have I created all this anger, the protests or whatever it might be, for example? But you're not the only person with anger, right? So it's our contribution to the collective. So whatever frequency we are vibrating at is our contribution to the collective. So if you're angry about anything, you could be angry with your neighbor. It's a frequency, it's an energy, it's vibrating at a certain frequency, and it will create that frequency outside of you. So you might not have anything to do with an angry situation in your collective that you're looking at, observing in the world outside of you. But that if you're seeing it, if you're observing it and you're judging it, and it's triggering anger within you, then your anger has contributed towards it. So understanding this bigger picture, and it does take courage. It takes courage to understand this stuff. It takes courage to open up. I think one of the biggest things that the willingness and the courage refer to is a willingness to be vulnerable, to face your vulnerability. I mean, a lot of the hostility that we see in the bottom bandwidth comes from keeping face, having to prove yourself, having to, well, we use that phrase, don't we? Keep face with people, wanting to look cool and all of that. Yeah, I mean, basically, if you want to enter into the green bandwidth, that all has to go. You have to be willing to feel vulnerable, even open up about your vulnerability, but it's okay, because of course everybody around you is going to be a vibrational match. So the only people that are going to be judging you is going to be yourself. It's going to be the version of you that isn't ready for that vulnerability, the part of you that is still stuck in the pride. That part of you might be reflected back to you, but understanding that it's all you really, really helps to understand this, I think. So how we help people expand into more of who they are depends on where they're at with their own level of consciousness and with their own frequency, but understanding that we are creating a reality around us. So the more that you love yourself, the more you will be surrounded by loving people who also love you. And the more you accept yourself and the more you accept other people, obviously, the more they will accept you. Okay, the more you forgive yourself, the more you forgive other people, then obviously the more other people can forgive you. And then you have this transcendence up into this meaningful. I mean, Dr. David Hawkins, who devised this map of consciousness, he's got meaningful right up there at 400. He claims that life lacks meaning before that point. A lot of the people below 200 will just be on automatic pilot, just following societal norms, without really understanding that there is a world of love and nature and purity and, all the things that people desire normally. Most people below 200 don't understand that they are creating their own reality. They feel powerless. That's why he calls his book is called Power versus Force, because those that are vibrating below 200 are living in a state of force because they're not understanding that they have that they are source energy flowing through a human vessel. All their energy has to come from their physical human self, which is why everyone's so tired all the time. And everything's an effort. Everything's an effort because you're having to force, because you're not open to allowing the divine flow through you. And yet power, he describes power as the top half of this chart, power versus force. That's what the book is called. Your power lies in love, in loving, acceptance, forgiveness, willingness, joy. These are where your power lies. Because when you're vibrating at that frequency, you counterbalance so many people that are vibrating below. It's not like one person vibrating at 500 counterbalances one person vibrating in fear at 100. It's not like that. One person, I never remember the actual figures, but one person vibrating in the higher part counterbalances, tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people, depending on how high up the chart they are, counterbalancing a really high number of people at the bottom of the chart. If you actually get to the level of peace at 600, you're actually counterbalancing whole countries, populations of whole countries and stuff. So that's where the power lies. Whereas when you're at the bottom of this chart, everything seems like an effort because you don't have that divine flow. Well, you have it, but you're blocking it. You're blocking it through your level of consciousness, through your lack of understanding, your lack of awareness, through your fear. All these things block the divine flow. And it's your strength and your power lie in that divine flow. So yeah, just taking baby steps help you shift the frequency. So like I said, just to summarize, somebody who is depressed, you know, if you can help them just take a walk in nature and help them just do a puzzle or to doodle or just to do something creative, even if they can't concentrate for long, it will shift them and open up the doors for the next bandwidth. And if you can get people in the next bandwidth to focus on their desires and what brings them joy, and encourage them to bring whatever that is into their life at a higher level, you know, rather than just doing what they love at the weekend or keeping it in their mind as a, you know, oh, that's my ideal activity, or, you know, as a pipe dream. Helping them just bring in, you know, little bits. If they like to paint, you know, but they can't afford it and they haven't got enough time, right? Just encourage them just to get a sketchbook and, you know, start drawing something, just start painting something. And it doesn't matter how little, because that's what's going to just shift them a little bit into the next level. And then encouraging people to express anger about the injustices in their life. As long as they're expressing anger in a healthy way. We're not encouraging anyone to be violent, of course, but you know, to express anger, the anger at injustices, it's a very relevant part to the journey. And we tend to, as a society, teach kids that they shouldn't be angry, that we're not meant to be angry. And it's not about that. Look, anger is here. It's an emotion that wants to be expressed. It wants to be processed. By telling people not to feel it, it just means that we suppress it. And that's why there's so much anger in the world, because we're not taught to process. It's the same with the fear. We're not taught to process it and to acknowledge it and to, you know, own it, feel it, heal it, as I often say. So expressing some just anger, you know, at some circumstances, it's okay, you know, to process that, but also obviously to help them have the courage to make changes within them, because of course, as I said before, anger, people want to change what's on the outside, but the good news is they want change. So it's, you know, it's all in the right direction, but they need to understand that they can make the change. What changes can they make within themselves, within their own thinking, within the way that they feel, within the things that they affirm to themselves? We notice we've got the word affirmation here. And can they start using affirmations? You know, what things can they do? What actions can they take to improve their own situation? And can they encourage them to have the courage and help them see that it is feasible? You see how these words are all relevant, and it's not only feasible but very empowering. But that will take them to then a need to explore their multidimensional nature. Well, usually, but at least they will need to explore loving themselves is very much the love that people feel for themselves in the yellow bandwidth. It can be quite egoic. They might be proud of themselves. We've got pride there. They might be proud of themselves for what they've achieved. But this real self-love and understanding of love as an energy really comes in the green bandwidth. So yeah, hopefully that's helped you see that your human experience is governed by your frequency, and everybody's human experience is governed by their frequency. So you know, if we want to help ourselves or help anybody, it's always about raising our frequency, because as we raise our frequency, we are expanding into higher levels of consciousness. And that higher level of consciousness is what's creating our reality. So our reality just gets more and more beautiful, more meaningful, more complete, more joyful, more loving, more serene, more peaceful, more blissful as you go up the chart. So yeah. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions. I hope I've covered everything there. Thank you for getting to the end of the video. Love you all. See you in the next video. Bye for now.